I'm Dr. Akeranda Smith. I'm a life coach, professor, and a thought leader.
Hi, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Dr. Ike, and before we even get started, just go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. I think you're going to like this week's topic. So I wanted to talk about self-worth and trust because they go hand in hand. And I often tell people you can't have one without the other. So when people tell me that they struggle with trust or trusting people, I'm like, oh, you don't trust yourself. That's what it really is. Because it has really nothing to do with other people. But it also gives me a lens into the framework of their ability to feel worthy of the very thing that they're grappling with around trust. So one of the things I always tell people is you can only go as high as the perception your parents had of you. So just think about it. Think about what your parents thought of you. That is your ceiling. So for me, my ceiling came early in life. And it was extremely low. Because I like to tell people that mothers are the bearer of self-esteem, which means they teach children how to give and receive love. And then fathers are the bearer of self-worth. So they teach us how to feel worthy of giving and receiving love. So those things literally intersect. They go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So when my father and my mom decided to divorce, actually my mom ended up divorcing my dad, there went my self-worth out the door because my dad figuratively divorced me as well. But if that wasn't enough, my mother never even wanted children. So there went my self-esteem because now I was the container for a reality that I didn't sign up for, which was my father wasn't capable at the time to feel worthy of being in a relationship with my mom. He didn't have all the tools, but neither did my mom. And she didn't want children. So now she was stuck with her greatest fear, and that was of being a mother. Because my mother was the oldest of 12 children. She had been a mother all her life. She was heavily parentified. So she thought she was doing a good deed by having me, hoping that that would keep her family together. And when it ceased to do that, her belief around whatever it is she thought her self-worth was, it went out the window too. And so did my father, because he was abusive and he also did drugs at the time. So immediately that set my ceiling. I knew it was going to be a hard life for me. I didn't know it instinctively, but I felt it in the way that I showed up in the world. A lot of times we don't give people enough credit for not knowing what they should have known. Because as a child, I would have liked to think that in my family, I was probably the problem kid. I was always in trouble. It looked like I definitely wasn't going to be sitting here doing as well as I am doing in life now. But what people didn't know, and what my aunts and uncles didn't know, and surely what my mom and my dad didn't know, is that they too only thought of themselves as high as their parents had thought of them. And so one of the things that I learned throughout my journey, and I had to realize, when your parents' perception of you is your ceiling, you're either trying to fix your mother or please your father, or fix your father and please your mother. So for me, I was a pretty self-sufficient kid. I didn't need the love that was manufactured by a mother in which she doted on you all the time. I was a very self-sufficient kid. And some kids need the kind of love where it's manufactured all the time and you're doting on them, you're hugging them, you're loving them, and that's okay. But I wasn't that kid. I was self-sufficient. All I needed was a mother that accepted me. That's all I needed. It lended me to look over at what I needed from my dad. I needed his love. With knowing that, it made perfect sense. why I wanted to fix my mother. See, when you want to fix your mother or your father, what you're doing is you believe that you have to perform to get the thing that you need from them. In other words, it's kind of like playing charades, right? And you have the word that you're trying to act out, but all these other words that you can't say, but you almost want to say them because they'll just help the person to give you the word that you need. That was me. I did a lot of trying to help my mother engineer the capabilities to accept me so that she could then free me and I could be the wonderful person that I thought that I always was destined to be. She never got it. But then on the other end, I was trying to please my father because I needed his love. So I spent an exorbitant amount of time chasing him, because that's what we do when we want someone's love. We chase them, not knowing that love is free, and that when someone really does love us, they give it to us freely. They don't make us work for it. And when someone accepts us, they do the same. They immediately stop you dead in your tracks and they say, you know what, you're enough. And so I knew as a young child, I was everything my mother didn't want me to be. I was young, precocious, totally opposite of her, very outspoken, and most of all, I was queer. She came from an ultra-religious family, so I knew it best. I was a big embarrassment. But years later, what I come to find out is that it wasn't that my mom didn't accept me. It was that she hadn't learned to accept herself. And so how do you accept a child in all of their glory when you haven't accepted yourself in all of yours? So that backdrop quickly became my ceiling. And so I would look at the world through the lens of a mother who never felt good enough and a dad who never felt worthy enough. And so when you understand what you need from your parents and what they are incapable of giving you, you then have to make a decision. You have to make a decision to legitimize them. And that's what I did. I spent years returning my parents back to themselves. And it was difficult, mostly because parents don't understand that when they don't have what you need, that they become useless to you. They become a paperweight. It's like, I love you and I know who you are in my life, but I kind of need more. And a lot of parents can't contend with that, especially if they're religious like my parents were, because they believe in the hallmark of honor thy mother and thy father. So it doesn't matter if I'm not giving you what you need, you're still to honor me. And for whatever reason, I just couldn't do that because it went against everything that I now know that is a part of my life path. And I came to do exactly what my parents couldn't do. So it made perfect sense why I couldn't stand back and allow them to give me what I knew I was much more worthy of. So whatever you refuse to heal, it becomes your ceiling. And I know that to be true because when I look at my mom and my dad throughout their life, my mom, who ended up going to school and getting her degree, but never felt worthy enough to use it. She ended up getting her undergrad and her graduate degree, but never used it. Always took jobs that were beneath her because she didn't feel worthy of pursuing a higher position. And my dad, he never was formally educated. So he was always a blue-collar worker. And believe it or not, my dad was very smart and is very smart. But yet and still, he never saw himself beyond his own ceiling. And so for me, a lot of my life was understanding how that perception was my perception until I changed it. So, what you refuse to heal always becomes your ceiling. And so, next week, I'll do a part 2 about how this shows up in our lives as it relates to the people we choose to love and the opportunities we refuse to take. As always, thank you for watching. And if you like this video, hit it and subscribe. As always, thank you for watching and see you next time.